The debate today will be between Sarah and Jackie as our proposition team, supporting the motion that it should take our jobs. And then opposing the motion will be Ben and Anushka. So without much further ado, I'd like to hand the floor over to Sarah, who will deliver our proposition case. So thank you again for attending and enjoy the debate.
All right. Thanks so much, Brian. Time is going to begin on my first word. Judge, we on side proposition believe that when artificial intelligence takes our jobs, we unlock a world where people can finally break free from oppressive labor structures and shift our collective energies toward meaningful, creative, and necessary work. What's the burden here? We are going to prove two key things. First, that AI taking our jobs necessitates a robust social safety net. And second, that this transition redefines the nature of human joy and flourishing. But first, let's look at the crux of the debate: why we need a welfare state. We say that in a world where AI replaces human labor, this does not just mean mass unemployment and despair. That is to say, when AI takes humans' jobs, it will force governments to institute policies like universal basic income and free or heavily subsidized education, policies that ensure no one falls through the cracks of this new economy. Right now, we know that rapid technological transformation often leaves the marginalized behind. So this shift to AI-led labor is exactly the kind of moment where society must step in to project the majority rather than only let the wealthy or highly skilled profit. We're first going to give you a contention and some framing to tell you why this is going to happen. And secondly, we're going to talk about happiness. So number one, there are structural barriers that demand we have a safety net in place for people. To benefit from AI, you need access to the internet, technical education, and career networks. That is to say, all the tools that historically privileged groups have more readily enjoyed. But in a world where the welfare state expands, these tools become universal, whether that's through publicly funded retraining programs or direct cash transfers from the government that make sure you can survive while adapting to this new market. So, how do we know? Oh, sorry, was there a POI? Not right now. How do we know that mass replacement of AI jobs will necessarily lead to policies like universal basic income that will make sure people just don't fall into poverty? Well, because AI development forces government's hands. It will become absolutely necessary for the economy to continue to function. If you fail to maintain consumer demands because too many people have lost their jobs, the entire economy just grinds to a halt. AI-generated products and services still need buyers, and if nobody has money, even the wealthy tech owners will see their fortunes evaporate. So if a large portion of the population is rendered unemployed or unemployable without access to retraining or resources, the economy stalls and social unrest inevitably follows. Thus, government will be forced, just at the end of my sentence, please, to enact these measures to avoid mass discontent and the breakdown of social order. Yes.
We saw COVID showed us an example where we gave people money and they didn't work. So skills, why wouldn't this lead to the same loss of skill?
So that actually brings me really nicely to my next contention. It's not going to lead to a loss of skilled labor because the sort of work that humans naturally want to do is fulfilling and innovative. Why is this the case? Because of my second contention, which is that a necessary condition of real human joy, human flourishing, is time. Freed from grinding 40-hour work weeks, just like we saw over COVID, individuals can explore creativity, develop entrepreneurial endeavors, or invest in community building. I mean, hey, think about how much all of us were baking sourdough in the first few months of COVID. AI-driven automation liberates us from forms of labor no one wants to do in the first place. That is to say, repetitive tasks, dangerous industrial work, or soul-deadening data entry. How do we know this is true? Because when AI takes human jobs, the bulk of displacement still happens with repetitive, high-volume tasks. Other work does get disrupted, but it's a smaller slice of the total labor pool compared to manufacturing, data entry, or clerical roles. For these reasons, we on Side Proposition are very proud to propose a future where AI takes our jobs, humans can flourish, we're going to have more robust social support from our governments, and we collectively embrace the responsibility of forging a more humane, equitable world in its wake. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Okay, now recognize first speaker for the opposition.
Thank you. Time starts on my next word. Teamwork makes the dream work, And today's debate forces us to imagine two different futures. The proposition wants you to believe that a world where AI takes our jobs will lead to a utopia of leisure and happiness. But what they overlook is the cost of such a world, a cost we simply cannot afford. As the opposition, we believe the better future is one where humans and AI actually work together, creating a balanced, innovative, and susceptible society. Allow me to show you why integration, not domination, is the best path forward. Hello, my name is Benjamin Hagwood, and I'm the first speaker for side opposition. And today we stand in opposition of the motion that this House prefers a world where AI takes our jobs. In my speech, I'll provide a burden, refutation of the proposition's case, and two arguments in support of our case. Our
Gavel.
burden in this debate is to prove that AI taking our jobs is overall more harmful than beneficial for society. The future doesn't have to be a war between humans and AI. The best path forward is actually integration where AI supports us, not replaces us. So let's break this down into some key reasons. So first, let's go to their case. Their first argument is that AI taking our jobs will lead to a better welfare state. And that kind of gives us the freedom to be able to explore things and to guarantee a kind of equal access for everyone in our society. But this doesn't make sense. We see examples from COVID where we give people more money, but it doesn't mean that those people are enjoying their life more. No, they just watched more Netflix and ordered more skip the dishes. They didn't actually get any work done, which means that our innovation actually stops. It decreases our skilled labor, in fact, and when we start to say, let's just give people money without them working to earn that money, the value of that money for them is even lost at that point. I don't know if I didn't have to work, I have no idea why I would even be on this Zoom call, for instance, or why I would do anything if I could just sit at home and get money for free. Their second argument was happiness, and that really being joyful is important because AI would just take all the repetitive things that we don't need to do because they're repetitive and boring. And they are repetitive and boring, some of them for sure. But repetition is what teaches us skills. It's what actually helps us grow and innovate and get better. If we use AI for that repetitive task, we just become more efficient, more effective, and better at actually being able to resolve the issues that we have on a daily basis. Sure, I'll take your question.
If AI can perform these jobs more efficiently and safely, why should humans continue to work in roles where they risk severe burnout or even injury?
I thank you for that question. That's awesome. I think that it's interesting because if AI is that efficient, then we can use AI because AI is a tool, which is our main point, not exactly a replacement for humans. Let's go on to our case. Our first argument is that cyborgs are better than robots. First, AI is simply a tool. It's not a partner. It processes the data that we give it, but it can't feel empathy. It can't understand nuance. It can't form relationships. Jobs are seen as more of a task than they are about the actual human connection. So it means some jobs that need human connection, things like doctors or teachers, actually are important. And we have to keep those things in perspective. When we keep them in perspective, it lets us know that, for instance, people in a retirement home that may need care 24 hours a day, yes, an AI can do it, but care is weird when that care is emotionless, when it's no feeling that's attached to it. And that's the thing that's important. We think that's huge because if you remove that portion of us as a society, our entire society falls apart. There's no reason for us to care or connect with other people. And our second argument is that AI in and of itself would kill all motivation. There will be no reason for us to do things if all innovation happens alongside of us and we just simply get to experience it. If you kill that motivation, all the skill, all the creativity, all the beautiful things that the proposition tells you that we get to explore as a world go away because we lose the drive to create those things.
Gavel, gavel.
In my speech, I've given you two arguments against them and two arguments for us. Please vote opposition.
All right, thank you, Ben. All right. Now I'd like to call on the second speaker for the proposition, Jackie.
Hello, welcome to our debate. Thanks everyone for showing up. I hope not to drop the ball for my partner Sarah in this debate. I would like to begin with a discussion of our case and a discussion of what they said about their response to our case. And then I will talk about their arguments that they made on why you should not support the motion. And then last, I want to talk about some distinctions that we're trying to make on the pro side versus the opposition side that I think that they glaze over a little bit. Now, first, let's talk about our position on how we need to worry about a safety net, about how we need to let more of like AI do the jobs and then we share the money. Now, the argument was that during times of COVID, people take the money and people waste it and they don't do anything. But people didn't starve, first of all, I think is the main thing. There was a lot of people that actually utilized the money, that utilized those things. But I think that misses the point, though, in the debate. Our argument is that AI is inevitable. The question is going to be, how are we going to approach it and how are we going to semantically discuss what does it mean to see a distinction between jobs and work? Remember, my partner, Sarah, discussed about how tech privileges certain groups in the status quo right now, that certain people already have benefits, and we need to find a way to create a level playing field. And so one thing I want to say is that we should not conflate work and jobs, okay? And I think that their first contention is about work, and if we're not doing our jobs, then we can pay more attention to things like work. Our second contention. Now, the opposition frames this as happiness. You know when we talk about how we shouldn't be trading time for money, and that's a bad way in which we are utilizing our skills. That's framed as happiness, and they talk about our ability to grow and innovate. Now, here's what I want to talk about: is we're about defining what work means, right? AI should do our jobs so we can do our work, okay? And the current conception of jobs is misinterpreted in a way to where we can allow it to do certain things that don't require that human interaction of work, okay? To where I'm not waiting around for the time clock to hit 5 so I can go home and finish my job. Now, the next thing I want to say is the term job is going to evolve with AI. And so I think we need to be focusing more on our role. Our creativity can happen whenever we're doing our work, and so work is what we have to do to make a better world. Jobs are what we do when we want to trade time for money. So we would need to be doing work on those things that actually need attention. Now, on their case, they talk about AI as a tool and we need to integrate and we need to talk about empathy. One thing I want to say is that human actions can be dangerous. We have the risky people are being abusive. We have pandemics, but we know AI is inevitable. And so we can't let AI do our work for us. That's where we have kids watching these AI videos and stuff, but they're not learning how to talk. We need to be doing our work and let AI do our jobs. Right now, we're trying to let AI do our work. And unless we have a better understanding of what our jobs are and what our work is, then we will kind of repeat, the future. And so when they say giving up our jobs for challenges, I think trading time for money displaces that creative energy and it's put into profits rather than our ability to do more of our work. So, my new contention, I would say jobs is trading time for money. When someone owns your labor, debate is work, not a job. Debate is never finished. Teaching debate.
Great. Thanks so much, Jackie. All right, now I'd like to recognize second speaker of the opposition, Anushka.
Thank you so much. All right, time will begin on my first word. AI replacement doesn't just mean humans are excluded from the workplace. It means humans are excluded from all aspects of daily life. No longer can you greet your postman, ask them about their family, or advocate for social change to legislators capable of compassion. For these reasons, I am so proud to oppose. I'm going to do a couple of things for you in my speech today. First, I want to go over this job-work distinction that side proposition throws at us in their second speech. I will go over some quick reconstruction and then move on to my refutation. So first, let's talk about this job-work divide, okay? Side proposition tells you that there's a difference between working for money versus working for personal enjoyment. I think that they forget what the realities of the actual world look like. Under a capitalist world, you have to do work at the expense of giving up your time. There is nothing that you can do, no activity you can engage in that doesn't come at the sacrifice of something, right? What we tell you is that the important thing when we consider work, when we consider the kind of activity that produces necessary outputs for society, it comes when we have integration, when humans are the ones that are leading the charge, that are telling us, which are the outputs we care about? What are the outcomes that we want to see? How can we benefit the people around us? When AI is the one that is leading this, when it is AI who are legislators, who are teachers, who are taking over all of these jobs that require human interactions that my partner has already explained thoroughly to you, that is when we see that the quality of outputs decline, the quality of society as a whole declines. All right. I think that pretty clearly takes down what they've explained to you. Let me go into this a bit more in depth in terms of our refutation. Okay, so I want to address their first argument about the welfare state and clarify what side proposition's world actually looks like. Okay, this comes through the persistence of inequality. They try to tell you that everybody will have enough to provide for them. This isn't true. AI replacement doesn't happen overnight. It will have been a gradual process that began with taking away the jobs of lower skill workers that side proposition already mentioned, the data workers, the construction workers, who depend on this employment to feed, clothe, and house their families. It is only near the end that the wealthiest, highest skilled workers from upper classes begin to be threatened by AI replacement. And by that point, they will have grown exponentially wealthier without lower level workers to drain their profits. In converting to a welfare state with this process happening in the background, side proposition actually intensifies economic inequality. So when proposition tells you that there will be universal access to tools like technology, they want you to forget that there is still inequality. This kind of economic inequality in the extent to which people can access this. We've seen this with COVID, and there is no reason for it not to persist into this world. And I want to touch on their second argument about human flourishing. They said that people will be freed from grinding 40-hour work weeks, that they can suddenly have time to explore creativity, develop entrepreneurial endeavors, and invest in community building. I want to address all of these things. So first, let's talk about creativity and entrepreneurial endeavors. I think these are fairly similar. They still involve a level of innovation that my partner has touched on before. I think that these things are undermined by stagnation. In the absence of the workplace, people return to the bubbles of their homes and immediate loved ones, becoming less exposed to new ideas and experiences that form the basis of change. Even if it's true that people are more creative in their world, this creativity will be highly individualized and therefore worse. While humans work, they must channel their creativity into outputs that benefit others as well as themselves, or risk losing demand. This means that human creativity in our world leads to outputs that can be enjoyed by more people and that advance our world. This is why we cannot separate jobs from work. Let's touch on the second part of the argument to do with communities. They are far more endurable in our world. This is true for two reasons. First, it's impossible to defeat an invisible enemy. Traditional human-led social movements push for economic change at the institutional level at the same time as proving their dignity, intelligence, and worth to privileged groups through daily interactions. This leads to outcomes that reduce both economic inequality and non-economic inequality, such as discrimination. By presuming human activity in the workplace, we avoid driving the non-economic, more impactful aspects of inequality underground and preventing social change. Secondly, the digital age is isolating, right? That's why we're scared of social media and living our lives like that. If we spend all of our interactions in daily life with AI more than humans, this will be amplified to a deadly degree. People will be less sociable, relationships will be weaker, and communities will collapse. Thank you.
All right, thanks so much, Anushka. All right, we'll have 1 minute really quick, just to allow a bit of time for the summary to prepare. But yeah, just want to point out to everybody in the audience, we've sort of gone through two pieces of the debate so far. We've had, first off, we had Sarah and Ben give us sort of the case. Ben gave us a little bit of refutation that set up Anushka as well. And then the second set of speeches by Jackie and Anushka were largely rebuttal. There have been a lot of really good framing arguments made so far and some good kind of going down the flow where they go line by line. And so what you've seen so far is really setting up like what are both sides' positions, where do they disagree, and clarifying what the clash is in the debate. What comes next that you're going to see from Sarah and Ben are going to be summary speeches where they're going to try to frame what is this debate all about. They're going to try to like have us focus on a couple of key issues, and they're going to try to resolve that by weighing both sides comparatively. They're going to say this is what this looks like with the AI transition in the workplace versus this is what the model that they've set up of on the opposition of having some sort of hybrid of cyborgs versus robots. So we'll see how that framing plays out in summary. So yeah, that's what's coming up. So Sarah, if you're ready, we can begin summary.
Oh, it's not up first?
Oh, sorry. Ben, sorry about that. Ben, you're up first. So yeah, sorry to spring that on you. So yeah, Ben, you're up.
All right. All right. 3 minutes. I will start my speech on my next word. In today's debate, there have been two clash points that I want to highlight. The first one is motivation. The second one is the debate between integration and automation. Let's talk about motivation first, because the second one is a little bit more complicated. Motivation is something that we get because we continually work or strive towards a larger goal for ourselves. And my partner did a wonderful job of framing how community in and of itself requires for us to move away from being individuals, being people that want to do things for ourselves all the time, which is the proposition's case. And that's important because we think that our case thinks about the overall impact that it has on society and the way that we should frame society. We think that there are a few things in this part that we really want to focus on. First, we think that we outweigh their case on probability. It is more likely that in a world in which AI takes our jobs and does all the repetitive things that we need to actually develop skills, that we don't actually develop any. And we think that this is uniquely bad because over a longer period of time, it decreases the skills that we have. Those skills don't have to be related to our jobs. Those skills could actually be the fact that we lose the ability to work well, the ability to communicate well with other people, the ability to empathize and to care for others. All of these things are at risk in a world in which we allow AI to simply do the things that we need to do that we've defined as human connection, which they have no refutation to at this point. And that's important because it means our entire society, our culture is all changed. It's reshaped and it becomes a lot worse for the smaller people, the marginalized groups that they're talking about in their speech. Now let's talk about the integration versus automation debate, because I think that this clash point is really the crux of the debate. That there's a difference between jobs and working, but there's no clear definition of what that difference is. The best thing we can do is figure out what's the most efficient way for us to be able to do things to ensure that we get the goals that we want. And we think automation by itself is not nearly as beneficial as integration. It is, and I'm going to give you a few examples. So if we're talking about civil society and making safety nets, which is what they're going to talk about in their speech, the important thing to remember is the details, which they're going to gloss over. In a world in which we fully automate, it's more probable that AI will decide that some people are not as valuable as other people. In a world in which we decide to automate, it is more probable that we lose the ability to create policies that actually care for individuals because human connection is gone, motivation, community, the idea of others is gone. But if you integrate, if you accept the cyborg, we move away from that because it means humans are still in control of that process. And this is important because it outweighs their argument on severity. It means that the marginalized groups that we want to create a welfare state for, that we want to protect, that we want to allow to have the freedom to be able to work and have a job, works better in a world in which they're cyborgs, not when they're robots. Vote against Elon Musk's dream of all AI and instead embrace a world for everyone. Thank you. Vote opposition.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Ben. And to bring us home, Sarah, you have the floor.
All right. Thanks so much, Brian. Time is going to start on my first word. Judge, the future we propose is not one of idleness, but one of active engagement with the betterment of our world. Before I continue, I want to highlight a key concession from our opposition. They don't really contest our framing that the inevitable result of AI replacing human labor will lead to mechanisms like universal basic income and governments giving people money. They have not argued that when AI takes our jobs, people will just starve. They accept that solutions like UBI are a likely outcome. What they seem to contest is the value of such a solution. And that's what we're here to talk about today. Our first theme is innovation. Opposition tells us that people need to have jobs in order to innovate, because when people are simply given money, they will do nothing and refuse to accomplish anything. But we tell you the exact opposite. My partner Jackie pointed out that when we have the freedom that AI jobs grant us, we will flourish. Judge, I want you to notice here that the opposition's case is built on a fundamentally sad view of humanity. They say that without the threat of starvation or homelessness, people will simply sit around and do nothing. They point to the pandemic and say, look, humans didn't accomplish anything. In reality, as Jackie tells you, people did innovate during COVID. Small businesses pivoted online. Families found creative ways to connect. Entire industries adapted to remote operations almost overnight. If that's the creativity we saw under life-threatening crisis, imagine the possibilities when we're not held hostage by fear of losing our jobs or our homes. The opposition's biggest mistake is believing humans only work hard under duress, as if our curiosity, desire to build, and drive to discover are meaningless without a gun to into our heads. This is such a cynical assumption. It sells humanity short. We on proposition believe that when people are liberated from the grind of repetitive labor, they pour their energies into pursuits that truly matter to them. I think we clearly outweigh on probability here, but let's take them at their highest ground and assume that humans truly won't accomplish anything meaningful or innovate. So what? Judge, note that they have no impact here other than the idea that, how terrible, humans won't be laboring. That's fine, we have AI. We believe and have shown that the essence of human existence and our flourishing goes far beyond mere labor, which brings me to our second theme, happiness. We've already told you that the types of jobs AI will replace are jobs no one wants to do, jobs that are often repetitive and miserable, and in some cases even dangerous to humans. Opposition tells you that AI should simply work alongside humans, that we can do these jobs together. But Judge, let's compare these two worlds. Let's look at, say, an Amazon factory worker. Right now, this worker spends long hours on their feet performing repetitive tasks that are physically exhausting and mentally numbing. The introduction of AI, according to the opposition, would help this worker do their job more efficiently. But does that fundamentally change the nature of the worker's day? Is their life meaningfully better? Now imagine that this same worker, rather than spending days in a warehouse, can simply engage in activities that bring them genuine joy and satisfaction, like making sourdough bread or volunteering at a local community center. Is the world where AI assists the worker where they continue to toil, or the world where they can explore passions that make their life truly worth living a better one, Judge? We clearly outweigh on severity here. Therefore, vote proposition if you believe in a future where AI serves humanity rather than traps us in the old routine. We say human joy, creativity, and innovation flourish best when people are free from the burden of just getting by. Let's believe in ourselves. Thank you.
Amazing. Thanks so much, all debaters. Yeah, let's give them a round of applause. Okay, what we'll do now is the judges will have a moment to deliberate. Nikki and Victor, if you'd like to send me your decisions, I'll announce the decision. We won't do a consensus decision on this. We'll let every judge's decision stand. And so we'll announce that result in just a moment. All right, everybody. Our judges have deliberated and we have a final decision. And in today's debate, we ended up with a 2-1 decision for the proposition. So congratulations to Sarah and Jackie on picking up the win for today. I was the person who sat in this debate, so I voted for the opposition. And I'll give a quick RFD or a reason for decision really quick on why I voted for the neg. So I think that both teams were pretty smart with their framing in today's debate. I think that this inevitability point, there were unique inevitability points on both sides. The proposition, first of all, the proposition world is one that I hope happens. Like, I really hope that we're able to give up all the work that we don't like, that's dangerous, that's boring, and that leads us to making more sourdough bread and hanging out with our friends and contributing to our communities. Like, I think that's the ideal world for everybody. And I think that their inevitability argument is one that does, I think, get sufficiently questioned by the opposition about, so they say it's inevitable that we transition to AI. Nobody questions that. But they say it's inevitable that we transition to this social safety net. And I think that gets called out pretty clearly by both Ben and Anushka here, where they say, no, that we live in a capitalist society. That's the world we live in. And that in capitalism, we see consolidation of power and wealth happen to the owners of capital. And in this case, it's going to be the capital of AI. And so I think, that's something that gets put down pretty well, especially in Anushka's rebuttal, that inequality comes first. And I think that also gets conceded a bit in Sarah's summary when she says that, humans adapt overnight, just look at COVID. And when I do look at COVID, so if my example is COVID, I see one where we saw inequality escalate very quickly, one where inflation boomed, one where you saw quick consolidation of capital by companies. Companies showed record profits while we saw layoffs happen basically across the board. And so I feel like that's something that if that's our warrant is look at COVID, that yes, some people did work less. A lot of people worked either harder or had got laid off from their jobs and experienced greater economic hardship. And so I think that the question of how we adapt is very hard. And I think that Ben gives us a really good answer in his summary that says, because humans control the process, it's going to lead to greater inequality, greater discrimination. And I think what does get conceded by the proposition is that's going to fall hardest on people whose jobs are boring. So data entry, people who are pressing buttons at a factory, and people who have dangerous jobs. So people who are in the trades. That both sides seem to agree on that as well. And so for me, if the people who are being disempowered most because humans control that process are people who are working those blue collar or no collar jobs, I would worry about that transition. I do wish, and one of the things I would have liked to see in this debate, I wish the opposition would have given me a more fleshed out explanation of where we see that in the real world. So I think Ben alludes to this when he says reject Elon Musk's world. I think that that's a great place to start, but I think that could have gotten blown up in this debate a bit more to make it clear about how this consolidation of power turns into political power. Because the crux of the debate for me is, what does that transition look like? Is it like the proposition says, where we transition overnight to a world of social safety net and equality, this purely equal state where everybody gets UBI? Or is it one where people like Elon Musk end up buying power and are able to control the political process, being an unelected official in the Doge group, and I think that would have been a great thing to talk about here. So I wish there would have been more warranting on that, and I think both sides did an outstanding job in today's debate of really putting that clash to me and the other judges. But for me, it came down to, when humans control the process, do I believe that the world is more like the opposition says, where they benefit largely the ownership class and capitalism, or do I believe that we get the political power to force a social safety net transition very quickly? Because I think there is a time frame argument about how quickly does this transition happen. I think opposition also could have blown that up a little bit more too. Is to say, okay, if it doesn't happen overnight, how do the disempowered people who lose their jobs engage meaningfully in a political way? So that's my decision. Obviously, I was in the minority on this, so I will hand it over to Victor to give the winning decision.
All right, thank you, Brian. So hey everyone, I'm Victor. I think Brian's RFD was pretty clear and rationale. However, I do disagree on some aspects. Of course, as you can tell from my decision. So personally, I feel like AI is probably in history, the biggest thing that we have that's possible to close the wealth gap, or basically even out inequalities that so far we've had in history. And this debate kind of, to me, came down to, like, are we able to make this accessible for everyone through this kind of like a welfare state or universalizable income that kind of spreads the accessibility of AI, versus more of like, does that not happen? Does it like go into like Elon Musk state, and then is integration better if we just replace repetitive jobs, right? So for me, I kind of felt like it was more probable for AI to take on the more repetitive jobs in some sort of way. However, I do think that at the end, it's probably more likely that AI can allow more of society to become equal, and that probably prevents, and I would say in some way short circuits, the Elon Musk argument, as if it's more accessible to the general population. And I would say that kind of boosts up the middle class. I don't think it necessarily consolidates to only the upper class. I feel like that would probably help society as a whole, and particularly the middle class, which I feel like would bring up the society as a whole rather than just helping the upper class. A few more things on my flow. I feel like the summary was where this debate really got boiled down to, and was a lot of themes comparison. For the con, the 2 points from Ben about how motivation and integration made a lot of sense. I feel like that was fine, but I don't really buy the point where AI would become like such a totalitarian state where like they kind of paint that picture of AI decides how worthy we are and that we lose all of societal's connections. Because I feel like even during COVID, we still had multiple levels of connections to each other, if it's not over Zoom like we're doing right now, or online classes, Skype, all of that. It's not entirely lost. Of course, there was some diminishment on that, but it wasn't to the point where I can buy the argument it's just like a totalitarian AI state where we each get assigned number based on how valuable we are to the AI, the AI boss, right? So when I look at the pro summary by Sarah, I mean, I can tell she really likes the big sour bread, but yeah, I feel like I kind of think Sarah did a successful job pointing out that their case was a bit more focused on the pessimistic view of human nature, and how that we did innovate and learn and grow during COVID, which is a good example that I felt like had a lot of implications in this round, especially if I'm judging from a parent judge standpoint. I felt like that was really making a lot of sense to me, even though it probably doesn't happen at the start of COVID, it kind of gradually happened over time, right? And it kind of forced all of us to adapt, like all the big corporations, all the schools, all the classes, as many of the parents and students here can also, remember when we all switched to online classes just in a week, that was a big adjustment, but I would say that adjustment also counts as progress, not just backwards, but maybe sometimes even forwards. So, yeah, I feel like that's probably not that's probably that is the reason why I mainly lean towards a pro vote at the end. And yeah, that's mostly it. If Nikki, if you could cover anything I've missed, or you have any other points.
Yeah, I think Victor covered a lot of it. I also voted for the AF. This was also mainly because I do buy the argument that there will be UBI implemented, and that because we're gonna take away mainly like repetitive jobs, it's going to like create jobs that allow for actual connection and creativity. I did understand, I did like opposition's point about how like in the long term like it could decrease like job skills, but because like side proposition's argument is mainly about taking away specifically the repetitive jobs, I think that there will still be lots of opportunities for people to like engage in creativity and have connection. um i also I also think that like side proposition wins on the theme of like equality, because like just because of like the newly implemented UBI, as well as like technology becoming a tool that's really universal and that everyone can use, which will help making like workplaces a lot more equal. I think I would have liked to see more refutation on whether or not like things like UBI would be implemented. But yeah, it was a really good debate overall, and that's why I voted yeah.
Oh yeah, one more thing I forgot to add. Another decision that I made was because it kind of came down to like a try or die scenario, because I don't really think we're gonna get like UVI anytime soon in the status quo, or like any sort of a giant welfare increase. So it's like, okay, let's do it. So, we actually have a chance for this, state of flourishing and human nature. So yeah, that was another reason I forgot to mention.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah. And Nikki and Victor, everybody, let's give to them. These are two of our, most experienced top students at VDA, and they did a fantastic job adjudicating the round today. Yeah, and that's true for all of the advanced students and the competitive students at VDAs. They all have judged rounds. They judge our in-house tournaments. They provide such good feedback to our younger students, and they're outstanding leaders that our younger students look up to them and want to emulate their talents and their success. So thank you so much for judging the round today.